Bienvenidos a Get Boring.
Get ready for some
Chisme.
chisme. Guys, welcome back to another episode of our podcast,
Get Boring.
Today we have a really good topic that we're going to discuss and talk about. I'm really excited about this one because I feel a lot of people don't like go into detail or talk about it very much. But today we're going to be talking about feeling disconnected after you're doing or while you're doing self-work on
Right.
yourself.
Right.
Because, I mean, I didn't think I was going to feel so disconnected
Yeah.
from people or from things
Yeah.
after working on myself.
Right.
And a lot of people don't tell you that. So it's kind of interesting. So we're going to talk about that. And that's really interesting.
Yeah. So we're talking about this connection mostly from people, right?
Yeah. From people,
And
relationships.
yeah, and like the closest circles, like friendships, family,
Mhm.
and romantic relationships.
Yeah.
Kind of sort of. So, what do you understand, Bendy, for self-work?
Self-work, well, it's pretty much just working on everything inside that we're not really taught to question, ask about.
Yeah, and all these mechanisms that we develop over the years
Mhm.
that we never question.
Yeah.
But these mechanisms could be very toxic. Some can be good. Some can be like trespassing people's
Yeah.
boundaries or letting people trespassing our boundaries. A lot of different mechanisms that we never question. And I think the self work is the practice to see these clearly.
Mhm. Yeah, that's so true. Yeah, cuz that's when you ask deeper questions.
Right. So, like the biggest reasons why we feel disconnected by doing self work could be that your values change,
Mhm.
right? Among other things. But when your values change, uh, you have this transformation of like a new moral,
Mhm.
like new ethics. But I think that's the way you see your surroundings,
Mhm.
because you're gonna have new lens and you're
Mhm.
looking at the world with this new lens,
Yeah.
and then maybe you're gonna have these changes of values or principles, and you're gonna behave based on these
Mhm.
statements, right?
Yeah, because I think when you're asking yourself all of these like deeper questions, then I feel like your values are going to be questioned as well. Like what you've been believing all your life and you're like, "Wait, do I actually believe that?"
Right.
So then that's when it comes the like breaking down of all these like let's start new and then we're going to rebuild on
Yeah.
what we actually want to
Yeah.
or believe, right?
And that's right there is just a change, right?
Yeah.
And it's basically like a filter, and that's gonna filter certain people.
Mhm.
So the sensation of disconnection
Yeah.
appears right there.
Yeah, another good thing is or another thing that happens when you are doing this self-work and disconnection happens is because you start learning about boundaries and then
Right,
you
right.
start putting boundaries on people and then that's what is going to start like you said filtering out
Yeah,
people and or people are going to be like, "Oh, I don't want to
right.
hang out with you
Because they
anymore."
have to learn your boundaries now, right?
Yes.
Sometimes it's difficult to learn that somebody is applying new stuff in their life
Mhm.
because you have to practice it
Yeah.
and remember all the time. Oh, this person um, actually puts me to be punctual now. Otherwise,
Yeah.
they're gonna leave.
Well, not.
You know?
I'm still working on you being punctual. We're still reinforcing that every time we gotta meet.
Right.
See,
Right.
it's a long time
But
work.
see, for example, me, it's drilled in my head that damn punctuality. I have to be punctual, or at least I'm trying to communicate better.
Or yeah, I feel like you're trying to rewire your brain to think
Right.
I am a punctual person. We're working on it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So boundaries.
yeah, and it's good because boundaries, it's like not only are you learning your boundaries, but then you start seeing the boundaries that people lack and the boundaries that people have.
Yeah.
Right? So as much as you want people to respect your boundaries, you have to respect their boundaries as well. And that's hard because it's like we want people to really respect my boundaries, but then you're like, I don't know if I really want to respect yours. Like I still want to do whatever I want, you know? So it's just a such a give and take, and it's so hard
Right.
because we're not programmed or raised to do that, you know,
Yeah.
to like really be conscious and think about that
Yeah,
kind
but
of
that's
stuff.
exactly the job of the self work.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard as you're saying. Maybe the other part is not putting like the self work into it,
Hmm.
and either they don't know how to process the information you just given by boundaries,
Yeah.
and they might just run away immediately. Or if they have a sense of self awareness, self work, they will understand and go along with you.
Yeah, and kind of work with you to this new system, right?
Right. Right.
Instead of like the old system that just doesn't work for one or the other.
Yeah.
That's why it's like, but that is what kind of gets you feeling out of sync with people,
Right.
right?
Right.
Because it's like as soon as you put some boundaries, then it kind of like gets you off balance. So
Changes. Yeah.
yeah, so then one or the other is like, oh, something's so off, and
Yeah.
either you communicate and work through that to come back into sync because you're doing the work and I'm doing the work. But of course, if somebody isn't doing the work, then it's kind of hard to come back to balance.
Right.
So, and I think that also putting boundaries makes you feel out of sync with
With
people,
people.
especially if they're not doing the work too.
Right.
Because I mean, I feel like that happened to me a lot.
Yeah.
A
Yeah.
lot.
That's very
Yeah.
is very notorious when you're doing the work.
Yeah. Oh my
Yeah.
god. Such a
Yeah. Another point is the isolation of the process.
mhm. Oh, yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, like when you start, because there's a lot of reflection.
Mhm.
It takes a lot of time,
Yeah.
years, and it's like I mean, it's just you
Yeah.
versus you. It's a lonely process in the sense of it's only you and nobody is there to help you.
Mhm.
You can find people to guide you, but all the
Yeah.
work is self work,
Yeah.
is inner work, and I mean that process can be really painful and it feels lonely. So
Mhm.
the isolation of this introspection
Mhm.
that you're doing can make you feel disconnected because you are doing it by yourself.
Yeah. That's true.
And sometimes even you try to express this to people, they're lost because it is too inner,
Mhm.
the inner world is very complex, and you're
Yes.
barely understanding your mechanisms and connecting the dots,
Yeah.
and people are gonna be confused like, what
Like,
the
what
fuck
are
are
you
you talking
talking
about?
about? Yeah.
Right.
That's so true.
And yeah, it depends. I think we're getting into, okay, these two groups of people who have done the work, they're gonna try to relate and understand because
Mhm.
they have done the same thing, or people who don't, which is gonna be probably the group of people you'll feel disconnected from.
Yeah, that's true. But it's like, you know what's weird, Bendy, is that when you're learning about yourself, then you start disconnecting or feeling out of sync with people, and you just get so sad because it's like, what? Where is the disconnect? Why are they not understanding me? We've been friends for 14 years. Like
Yeah,
I don't understand.
yeah,
We're supposed to be besties,
right,
right? So it's like it's such a hard thing to you're trying to understand yourself and then you're trying to understand people who don't understand themselves either,
right, right.
right? So it's just like really hard.
Yeah,
And I
but
think that
yeah,
that goes with your loneliness statement, like that process makes you feel so lonely.
yeah, because
And
look how much time you have spent thinking about, I don't know, my impunctuality. How
listen,
much time
there's
I have spent into that. So I'm probably an expert now about my my impunctuality,
yeah, I
right?
hope
Right?
so. Yeah.
I
Because
and and any other mechanism,
Yeah.
but only you know the deepest details, right?
Like where that is rooted in on
Yeah,
your
yeah,
unpunctuality.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it is require a lot of understanding and maturity and maybe experience from people to
Mhm.
actually pay attention and listen to you,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
Otherwise, I think conversations are not gonna be efficient.
Yeah. 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 Because it's like one doesn't know, like if you're all into what you're going through and I'm like, I cannot relate. Sorry, let's move on to the next subject,
Yeah,
right? It's so
yeah,
much easier to do that than
right.
be like, "Oh, I get it." Right?
Yeah,
Yeah, and it's like and it's funny when you're doing the work and then you see your friends that have started the process and then you're seeing them go through, you're like, "I know that because I've been
I've
there.
been there.
I've been in that process too, and it
Yeah,
sucks, but
yeah,
this is what you got to go through." kind of thing. Okay, so another thing in this whole process of self work is also outgrowing your friendships. That to
yeah,
me, I experienced a lot of that.
yeah,
And I didn't know what the hell was going on.
yeah.
Like, what the hell? I lost, well, I guess, yeah, you can say in this process of self growth, I lost a friend that I was friends with for 14 years.
Wow.
And I think that that process was so hard for me to kind of release that friendship.
Mm-hmm.
But once I did, I understood it better. But in the process of releasing her, which was probably a 2-year process still, right? Like,
Okay.
because you're still trying to keep that connection that you
Yeah,
used to have, but then that old version of you doesn't no longer exist. So
yeah.
you're still fighting with the old and new version of you. So
Right.
you're trying to hold on to these relationships that you had because, oh, we have so much time invested, but it's like we're both see the world different now and
Yeah.
it's okay to kind of let it go. But that has, I mean, I've been doing this self work for like maybe what, well, I'll say a good 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
And in that process, I've lost a lot of acquaintances, friends, a lot of people I thought would be my life forever,
Right.
my best friend. And I think that's the kind of stuff that I don't think people talk about enough when you're doing the self work, that your friendships are going to look completely different.
Yeah.
And it sucks. It really does suck because I think that was one of the hardest things that I needed to learn, is how to let go when it was time to let go,
Okay. And
you
what was
know,
the reason you decided
to
to
let
move
go.
forward?
Oh, well, I found out she wasn't a very good friend, for one.
Okay.
She was not a very nice friend,
Right.
behind my
Okay.
back kind of thing. Well, that was one. And another thing is like just learning about myself. I didn't want to talk or do the same things we were doing before so
Right.
subconsciously, right? Now
Right.
I'm
So
so,
that created the disconnection.
yeah, the disconnection, like the oh, I'm not interested in doing that anymore because I know why I do that, where it comes from, and
Yeah.
what moment in my childhood I'm bringing it back
Based on the
into,
self work.
right?
Right.
So it's like, and then she wanted to still stay stuck in that
Yeah.
21-year-old
Right.
version of us, and it's like,
Okay.
it's not mixing anymore.
Yeah.
So
Would
yeah.
you say that, for example, you propose this or in your head, like, oh, I'm a different person now. I have changed this and this and this way.
Hmm.
Um, are you willing to give the opportunity to communicate and say, hey, look, this is where I stand up. Um, do you come? You want to come like with me in this journey?
Hmm.
You give the opportunity, or you simply like block it and move on?
Oh, that's a great question. Well, ok-
Because you also see that the person might not be ready to enter into a journey with you
yeah,
or keep uh, refining the friendship.
that's so true. But that's the thing of when you're like very early in your process,
Yeah,
you barely understand what you're feeling,
right.
and you're processing all of your emotions on what's going on here with this friendship. That you're not, it's kind of almost like you're not focused on all the other things that, like how you said, are you willing to have a conversation?
Yeah.
In that moment, I didn't know that I didn't communicate well.
Okay.
So that was another factor I had to learn, right? But I think that the time was meant to be cut off there with her.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
don't think that her and I could have had a conversation even if I was aware that I wasn't a good communicator, because I think her communication skills were so bad. She was going to take everything I said as an attack instead of like, "Oh, hold on, you're doing this work."
Right.
Right? And instead
Because you
of,
get to see it with some
yes.
when somebody has put some work.
Yeah. But I was so early in my process that I in that moment in time I thought to myself that it was better for me to
Oh.
separate
Okay.
myself completely and move on and work on myself.
Right.
Right? If in the future, I mean, I would never be her friend again, with all the respect. I would never bring her back into my life
Yeah.
because I found out a lot of more other things, but that's a different story.
Yeah. That's kind of more when you know more, you kind
Yeah.
of reaffirm,
Yeah.
confirm that that
Mhm.
was that a
That was
good
the best
decision.
decision.
Yeah.
But today, if you're asking me that today about my friends that I have currently, yes, I would. I have, you've been through that process, my process of that too, of like something happened with a friend. We sat down, we had conversation, and we talked about it like adults, and we moved forward together. Sometimes it works, and sometimes it
Yeah.
didn't, right? And
Right.
so, but today, yes, I am very willing to sit down and have a conversation and see if we can both work together.
Right. That's great. I mean, to give the chance to say, "Hey, hop on the boat with me,"
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
if they don't want to, or they don't even know how to swim. I mean, it's better to
Yeah.
go separate ways sometimes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, another part in the biggest or the closest circles is family too.
Hmm.
And family, I think is very special, a very special topic. So I think in my case, when I start doing the self work, I notice like my behaviors, where my behaviors came from,
Hmm.
or certain patterns that I have. And if I get to see like members of my family is like, oh, I'm this way because of this.
Yeah.
I'm this way because of this. So you start finding those little details so you understand yourself better.
Yeah.
You understand people better,
Hmm.
your family members. And this can create like a chain reaction of understanding, empathy, comprehension, compassion, just chill about what was bothering you because you see it
Hmm.
clearly now,
Yeah.
right? So it's like explosion of things,
Hmm.
but that explosion happens in time.
Hmm.
But I think that the most important part here is that disconnection that you feel with your family members
Hmm.
is so weird because I mean you might love them, right? And typically we have like this union and love and unconditional love to family members. That's like the typical.
Yeah. Yeah.
And and seeing them as people too, not just your family, but they're
Right.
people too. They had a maybe a rough life.
Hmm.
They had their own traumas, conditions, processes, experiences. When you
Hmm.
get to see them as a person, it's like, damn,
Yeah.
you somehow feel more connected, but this sensation is
Yeah.
inside of you.
Yeah.
But the actual practice might create the disconnection with the person because we're familiar with certain patterns, and
Hmm.
if you want to get out of a mechanism or pattern, that's going to feel unfamiliar for them,
Yeah.
and it might create a tension,
Yeah.
right? So and every member is different, right? And you
Oh,
have a
yeah.
certain relationship with each one. So
Yes.
when you start polishing your mechanisms or remove them, this huge disconnection happens.
Yeah. Oh my God, yes. And it's so crazy because, I think that sometimes we give a lot more chances to family because they have the word family in
Yeah.
their name,
Yeah.
right? So it's like, oh, oh, well, that's my sister, that's my brother, I have to. It's like, well, no, because they're also people, and that's where your boundaries also have to stay, like, get stronger. Because if not, pinche cagadero with family.
Right. Right.
Because we allow more from family because they're family.
Yeah. But you know what? I'm just thinking now that it is a great practice because you keep refining your definitions. For example, the
Yeah.
definition of love to family.
Mm-hmm.
What is this? Once you encounter like this disconnection out of self work, you start seeing them as people. But I mean, remove the word family and it's
Right.
just people.
Yeah.
It's like what the
Isn't that
heck?
crazy? Yeah, with family it gets really tricky.
It's tricky, and it's such a special place. I think is completely worth it to take your time. It's a special place where you're gonna find a lot about yourself, and
Yeah.
I mean it's difficult because if something is really annoying you, you have to also balance it out
Yeah.
and choose for what is best for you.
Yeah.
But I think with family we need this part of acceptance and flexibility, like
Mhm.
some combination of acceptance, flexibility,
Mhm.
and opportunities for growth and growth and conversations.
Yeah, but Bendy, honestly, in my family, I would say my immediate family, I'm the only one who's done the self work and keeps doing it, right? So when you're the only one, how hard does it
Yeah,
you keep going back to it, you want the pattern, you want to get out of the pattern, but
right.
they're in the same pattern. It's
Yeah,
like you're like, okay, when does it come to the moment of where you say, I need to separate, I
yeah,
need a break, I need to
yeah. So,
be apart?
sometimes you need to do that.
Yeah.
In my case, I think I was the first person doing that.
Hmm.
Probably my sister because she's I think she's smart in that sense. But I did like the roots. You know, I think I went to the roots of my some of my issues, and I kind of gathered them and start just talking about this stuff. And I could see that they were having a rough time trying to understand me.
But Bendy, how long did you do therapy and like do the deep therapy before you started like bringing these things to your family?
Yeah, I think it was like for a year.
A year?
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
think a year is you're barely understanding yourself.
Right. Yeah.
A year, yeah, I think a year. But since I'm a deep thinker, I think I also discovered things very quickly.
Quickly. Hmm.
And I went to practice immediately. And for me, the practice in families having these conversations,
Oh.
gathered together and expressing things that are gonna be uncomfortable things.
Yeah.
That's what you have to express exactly. But depending, you can set the tone that this is not a threat.
Hmm.
Like this is me. I'm trying to understand you better. Let's grow together. That's the purpose of the meeting,
Yeah.
right? So they were having a rough time in that process, but I kept insisting, like
Mm.
having more conversations, like let's do this again, and also the actions that you have, right? They
Yeah.
see you are changing, and I think over time they came with me.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like everybody start like seeing things and a different pace, but I could see my family working
Like
like
adjusting to
yeah,
it.
yes,
Hmm.
and I think probably my family relationship is the best now in all times.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I
Wow.
think probably that decision of me doing that triggered like this new synergy and
Right. Yeah.
interaction. But yeah, I could imagine that if my family was like, no, I'm not gonna go with you,
Yeah.
I probably would step out or get some
Yeah.
distance.
I think with my family, we have such a hard time communicating if it's not yelling at each other. So,
That's
so
great.
yeah, so that's the only way we communicate. or I used to communicate, and I think that it I don't think that, well, maybe I'm not giving them enough credit, right? Maybe it could be different now.
Right.
But
Yeah.
from what I remember, it's like there is no open-mindedness to communicate or be better or want to, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's like I think people get so stuck in their patterns, it's very hard to see first and then get out.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
But you know what? For example, you did the self work. You mentioned they're kind of stuck in that sense,
mhm.
whatever that means. Do you have like the openness if they would want to talk? Like, kind of try to rework things out?
100%. I think that doing all the work, I mean, I couldn't say 100% 2 years ago because my boundaries were still very weak.
Or,
you know,
yeah, fragile,
right?
yeah.
Yeah. And I didn't
Or
know.
sensitive, right?
Yeah. Or being able to communicate, be like, no, that's not what I like. This is, that I think that I'm so much better at it now
Yeah.
that I can definitely, I would be so open to have a conversation
Okay.
and be like, yeah, but of course, before the conversation starts, boundaries have to be set. Like, there will be no yelling.
Yeah.
And if there is, I'm out,
Right.
kind of
Yeah, I
thing.
think you start getting stronger.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, me
yeah.
too. I feel stronger and
But you know what, too, Bendy? It's very hard to learn communication. And I think I always felt this about you since we met, that I feel you are very like, oh, let's have a conversation, and that's fine. Right? You make it so like, yeah, like you ease into that, right? But when you would show me that, or like you wanted to me, I was freaking out,
okay,
or like,
yeah,
oh my gosh, right?
right. It
It's like,
requires practice.
yeah,
Yeah.
it has to be practiced. So before I would cry about wanting to communicate with someone, right? Like, wait, I had to communicate. I would literally cry because I was freaking out.
Or some people find it boring. Que boring, right? Like, oh
To
my god,
communicate.
communicate? Que boring. No.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
So either
Like,
you cry or you get bored.
yeah. So that was me before. Like, I have to communicate. I'm gonna, and I like just even talking about communicating. I cried.
Right.
Now I'm like, yeah, it gets me a little bit uncomfortable, but it's more like, no, it has to be done. So I might as well just do it because if not,
Exactly.
I'm never gonna
Yeah.
learn how.
In that sense is what I mean of feeling stronger
Yeah.
because you're practicing these muscles, right?
Yes.
You're stronger and you can get things done in a couple of days,
Hmm.
where in the past it would take you 6 months,
Maybe longer.
maybe
Or
longer.
if not, you'd fight about it first and then we'll figure it out.
Yeah. Okay,
I mean,
Bendy.
yeah.
The last part is in the closest circles, the uh, partnerships and romantic relationships. What
Okay.
about your significant other? Uh, how you feel disconnected with your significant other? I think there are many variables playing here, or triggers that could detonate that. But I think generally speaking, if you're doing self grow, you, let's say you're growing in a scale like this, and if the other person is not growing with you, the tension happens, right? and and based on, let's say, the change of values
Hmm.
or the introspection, like your significant other is the person who sees you the closest,
Hmm.
right? So is the next person after you of knowing you better,
Yeah, that's
right?
true. Yeah.
And I think it's really hard if they don't see the same things as you
Hmm.
for the future.
Hmm.
And all this change out of growth can create that disconnection. Like we no longer see one mission together.
Yeah, and but it's very important to, because you know yourself so well that you will be honest with yourself
Right.
when you're like trying to be like lying to yourself, because we love doing that to ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's when you're being honest with yourself and your partner, and then you find your partner not do being honest with herself, so how are you going to have her be honest with you,
Yeah, yeah,
right? Not it's like another tension thing because it's like you need to really know when you're not being honest with
yeah,
yourself. And
yeah,
that's so finches hard.
yeah. It's really hard, and I think once you start doing the process, they have to do the process too.
Mhm.
The self work.
I agree.
There's no way that one person is doing all the self work and the other person is just doing nothing. I think the eventually that's gonna break down.
Yeah, cuz then it's like you're putting so much work. You as the self-aware person is carrying two people
Right.
instead of like we're carrying each other back and forth.
Yeah.
Okay, Pendy, when you're going through this process, there's a lot of things that a lot of people don't tell you or you're not prepared for. So it's a very crazy process that you go through.
Yeah.
And what are some ways that we can like navigate through this process because it's hard. So I think a good way of being able to navigate through this hard process that these are the things that nobody really talks about like
Yeah.
they just make it all nice and fluffy. I think a good way of navigating through this is um accepting the process that you're going through. Just
Yeah.
accepting it, because I think that's one of the hardest thing is accepting all the changes that are coming.
Yeah. Be aware that very likely is normal.
Yes.
So you're saying accept it.
Yeah, accept that process because that's the first thing, right?
Yeah.
Accepting something and then we can move into doing the actual work.
Yeah. That's gonna give you a lot of patience
Yeah.
to keep doing the
Exactly.
process.
Yeah, because then there's going to be a lot of changes in this process. So it's like accepting that the change is coming in whatever way it comes. That's a great way of
Yeah.
navigating through it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I struggle? I think it happened to me recently that I think when I reflect inwards, I kind of closed,
hmm
and it's hard for me to be like very open.
You need to go into your little cocoon
Yeah, my
and just
cocoon,
think.
and I think I struggle communicating.
Mm.
Is really really a powerful tool to communicate in your relationships that you're going through a process.
Oh, that's good.
Like, you
Yeah.
know what? I'm doing this new task or this new um I have new goals or whatever. Or communicate that your values are changing as you
Yeah.
notice them. or those little things, if you express them, I think people will understand you better and they can say, oh, I can see this person is going this way now. So
hmm
either I walk with them or I respect their
That's
time.
true.
Yeah, I think I struggled with that, and that creates disconnection because if I'm not communicating, maybe the other part feels rejection,
Yeah.
and then they
And you
react
you
in
trigger
some
something
way.
in them,
Yeah,
whatever it may be.
whatever it may be,
Yeah.
but then they react, and I can interpret that back as another rejection.
That's
You know,
true.
and the interaction is awkward, is uncomfortable, it can be messy,
Yes. So
not
honest
healthy. Yeah,
communication.
honest communication is very important, and being open to express
Yes.
things as you discover them.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Another way too is seeking people that are like-minded.
Yeah,
People that are thinking in the same process as you, like, okay, I'm there's a lot of things changing. My relationships around me are changing. I need to find that support system that also understands my changes, that encourages me to, hey, work towards communicating honestly or better with people or whatever,
yeah,
instead of just doing it on your own, like you're saying. Because, I mean, yeah, you can do it on your own, but it gets really lonely.
it gets lonely, and we're social beings,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
So if we're going through a change, we're feeling disconnection
hmm
with certain people.
Yeah.
We need to see the way to feel connected, maybe with other people or people who want to join you.
hmm
by having like similar goals, but in the self growth sense.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that helps a lot because I feel like when I was feeling in my loneliness, it was nice to speak to someone like, "Oh, I've been there too." Then you're like, "Oh my god," you almost feel like you can breathe because you understand
Yeah,
the pain that I'm feeling.
yeah,
So it is nice because then you think, okay, then there is a light at the end of this tunnel because you really feel you're going to drown in these feelings and that's it. And you're
yeah,
going to live here forever.
yeah,
And it's like, no, it's not. One day you will be over there on the other side and you're going to be like, great, this is awesome.
yeah, yeah. And I think self work and self awareness is probably one of the most general things
Hmm.
to find a connection. Because, for
Yeah.
example, I could find a group of mountain bikers,
Hmm.
and we go, and yeah, I'm connecting. We're connecting in interest in an activity, but that's just one, or maybe it covers three variables of all that you need to be feel really
Yeah.
connected.
Hmm.
So I think finding people who have done self work is very general and it covers every aspect of
Hmm.
life.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, you can use that in any aspect of
Right,
life.
right.
I mean, any relationship, anything. So, yeah, it's very important to have those people you can bounce off of ideas. Like, I think you and I are pretty good about that. Like, when you're
Yeah,
going through something, like you bounce ideas like a sounding board in it, you in your own talking, you're like figuring it out. You're like, oh, now I'm hearing it.
right.
So it kind of like the dots connect all in your mind.
Yeah,
So it's kind of good to have somebody like that because you can just spit it out and they understand.
yeah.
So you don't have to
Right, right, right.
take all this time to
To
explain.
explain.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. So another thing is also to always celebrate your growth because it's very important for us to be patient and nice to ourselves because this is
yeah,
hard work and it's a never ending, it's a lifetime job.
yeah,
So I
yeah,
think we always have to celebrate our small wins, our big wins, because 2 years ago, it was so much different for
right.
us than it is today.
Yeah, I think that's really important. I think it helps you sometimes close cycles and then move on,
Mhm.
move forward.
Yeah.
Yeah, honestly, that's something I don't usually do, but I think I'll incorporate that.
Yeah, you should,
Yeah,
because this is hard.
yeah,
You should be so proud of so
yeah. We've done a lot.
oh my
We've done
God,
a
so
lot.
much.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we
That's for another podcast.
we should celebrate sometime
Yeah, we should
out of this
celebrate. Yeah.
episode.
Yeah, that's true.
All
um
right, guys. Here we brought two quotes regarding disconnection from after self growth. So I'm gonna read this one.
okay, yeah, read them.
Okay, so real life quotes of disconnection after self work. You are not losing people. You are losing versions of yourself that no longer exist.
I love that.
Yeah, I like it. You want to read the other one?
Okay, so for the other one, is growth feels like a betrayal to those who are comfortable with your old self.
Yeah,
Damn, that's good because it's
yeah,
so true.
yeah. Yeah. The communication part here enters, right?
Hmm.
Like if things are not clear, then people are gonna react.
And they're gonna think you're a bad friend.
Yeah,
It's like you're betraying our friendship of 15 years.
yeah. But Pandy, that makes me think that when you see somebody working
Hmm.
and any aspect, self work, actual work in a company or
Hmm.
whatever, the job, if you see them working, that means that they're growing.
Hmm. Yeah.
So let's respect that.
Yeah.
Let's celebrate that, understand that, and respect it.
Right?
Yeah.
I just thought of it like when people are working on work, nobody will say, "Oh, you're working too much."
Right. Right.
Right? But when you're working on yourself, people be like, "What's up with you?
Yeah.
What's wrong? Why are
Yeah.
you being like that?"
Yeah.
It's so crazy.
Yeah.
But I mean, another thing too to remember is that if we are in this journey, we all feel disconnected. That's just something that's going to happen. We're not going to be able to not feel that way.
Yeah.
I think
It's
it's just to remember that It's not permanent where you're
Right.
going to move past it, and you just got to keep doing the work.
Yeah, guys, if you're feeling like that, just know that it's temporary.
Mhm.
And as we were saying, you'll get stronger over time. But
Yes.
you just need to go through the process. Don't step back, because if you step back from this process, you're going to experience it again in the future. But you already told your brain, I couldn't make it the first
Mhm.
time. So it might be harder in the future.
And sometimes when you step back too, it's like you get stuck there
You
and then
get
you
stuck.
never keep moving
And,
forward.
or that, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
So
So don't be scared. There's
keep doing the work.
keep doing the work, and there's always somebody that you're gonna find and is gonna help you grow.
If you guys have, like, we would love to hear stories of people who have gone through this or going through this or anything, that relates. We want to relate, stories
Yeah,
pretty
yeah,
much.
yeah. Let us know.
Because I
Uh,
know we can't be the only ones. We can't
right.
be the only ones
There should be
feeling
more
this
people
way.
doing stuff. I mean, for sure.
Yes.
I know friends uh, that actually I grew up with them in some other processes.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but I mean, there's people, but not too much.
Yeah, that's not too many, but it would be great to hear stories from you guys.
Yeah.
We have an email you can contact us on and share some stories. Maybe we'll like read some stories on the
Right.
podcast
Right.
later on.
Yeah.
That'd be kind of cool.
Yeah.
Um, Also, we have YouTube, Spotify, where you can listen to us, and
Instagram, TikTok.
Instagram, TikTok. So
Yeah. So
pretty
please
much,
subscribe on all platforms
yes.
so you can receive the content, notifications, and stuff.
Yeah, and
Like
then
us.
and then we can discuss it on the podcast. I mean, I think that would be so much fun to get like the audience
Right.
kind
Involved.
of involved.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
answer some questions and whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. That's good.
Okay, well, thank you for
Next time.
listening.